like to bring our next guest on to the program. We're happy to have him spend some time with us today. Joe Laurin, President of Fidelity Health Marketplace. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're great. Good to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Are you coming to us from Boston this morning?
I am. It's a beautiful fall day here early fall day here in Boston. Couldn't be better.
Yeah, one of my favorite cities, particularly this time of year. Well, we're down in hot Atlanta. It's still hot down here, so.
Oh yeah. Well, that's good too.
And then, yeah, it's not bad. It'll particularly.
We'll be wanting to come down there in about a month.
There you go. The door's open. Hey, Joe, update our audience a little bit about around Fidelity Health Marketplace and what you guys are doing, and then we'll talk about some of these trends that you see and get your perspective on where you see the market today.
Sure. So, Fidelity Health Marketplace is, I guess, exactly what it's called. It's a marketplace where employers and employees can come and manage their benefits, manage and enroll for, and I think importantly, manage over time throughout the year their various benefits. And I know we're going to probably talk about the various flavors of exchanges. We actually avoid the word exchange to some degree because we think that what we have is a little bit more holistic than that. We think of ourselves more as a ben admin platform that's actually something that folks can use throughout the year, not just during an open enrollment event. So again, maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. But so we're a marketplace that is for employees and employees during the open enrollment season, but then beyond that, and it's an integrated sort of one-stop shop with their retirement and savings, HSA, even Fidelity's payroll offering. So it can be this much more holistic view and place to manage benefits.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you that exchange is a confusing name. I think more confusing not because of the word, but because of what the industry got conditioned to over the past couple of years, because it's not one size fits all. To your point. So. Yeah. So talk, Bill, about that. I mean, I'd love to talk to you more about that because I talk about it all the time to the marketplace. And, people have different opinions on what a private exchange is, and you started to allude to it. I mean, define it. Go ahead and define it. I think you started to.
It's hard, right? Because there are, and people are confused by the public exchanges and then private exchanges and what they do. So to me, if I think of a private exchange per se, it really is a tool that assists employees in their enrollment, in their benefits during the open enrollment, the annual enrollment period, so 1 or 2 weeks in a year. And it's used, if it's done right, it's used to help simplify that enrollment experience. It brings technology to bear. It brings greater choice to the employee and the employer, and it automates some of the administration for the employer. But if I have some additional thoughts. I mean, at the risk of plugging, Fidelity Health Marketplace, like I mentioned, we avoid that word exchange because we do think that we're broader, and that what employers and employees need is something that's broader than just something that can help them during that 2 weeks of annual enrollment. And that's why, as I mentioned, that we've built this sort of broader experience, not only using some of those same techniques, the modern technology that, intuitive, good consumerism principles brought to bear, better choice, those things that I've already mentioned, but then also tools to help the employers manage the benefits year-round so they can see, how people are using their benefits, who's enrolled. They can help manage life change events, for example, and they can then, the employee then has a window into their more holistic benefits, their retirement savings, et cetera.
Yep.
And we know, as Fidelity, we know that people go in, for example, and check their 401k balances quite often. So there's an advantage here that we get more eyeballs more frequently, more and throughout the year in this space, and then we can use that more frequent visit to help them better manage their lifestyle and their health. And I know you were talking to Mark about, wellness came up. I mean, I think this is a critical thing, right? If people, use these tools more frequently and throughout the year, or even if they're not using them, we can, if they're coming to this website in this place, we can remind them of the good things that they can do to manage their health, which, of course, then impacts their wealth.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to the choir here, Joe. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I talk all the time about, first of all, it's the first step. How do you improve benefit delivery, benefit enrollment? How do you help employers better manage that cost and make that more efficient? But then how do we move towards the ultimate goal of creating this 365, 24/7 benefit health portal? And, to your point about the convergence of health and wealth, too. I mean, people are going to not only check their 401k, but they're going to come back and check their HSA balances. Financial wellness is absolutely critical today to total well-being in an employee population.
That's right. We all know, and I know as you said, I'm speaking to the choir here, but, we all know that a lot of folks go and they buy their monitor that they, wear for a week, and they sign up, they make that commitment to do so many steps, and but it falls to the side, right? And the treadmill starts getting dust, and so people need reminders. It's just plain human nature. They need to be reminded, and they need to be guided, and they need to be educated, and so if there's a place where they're going to come naturally more frequently, it just gives us an opportunity.
Yeah, you have talked about, public health exchanges, and they've been in the news a lot. And I think you have an interesting perspective on, as we see large insurance companies pulling out, how can this potentially impact even an employer perception of a private exchange, let alone the consumer's perception of a private exchange?
Yeah, I did mention it is an interesting point because people read about public exchanges all the time. And, the interesting thing is private exchanges existed even before the passage of the Affordable Care Act in 2010 and the birth of public exchanges then. So I think the answer varies somewhat by the audience, as you pointed out. So, for the first audience, the plan sponsor, the employer, the folks that we're working with, the small and medium-sized businesses that sponsor health benefits to their employees, the vast majority of those clients are fully aware of the challenges of the public exchanges and that they don't extend to the private exchange marketplace. So we, frankly, haven't really encountered any situations where one of the employers or potential clients we've talked to has been concerned about our offering or the private exchange model because of what's happening in the public exchanges. They really do understand that, are not blurring those two. I think the other audience, though, the plan participants and the employees, there's probably more opportunity for those folks to be less informed and more likely to confuse the two. And so if they're already confused, then the news that, hey, this carrier or that carrier is backing out could just further confuse that issue. And, frankly, I think across the entire marketplace, the bottom line is that as an industry, there's an opportunity and an obligation for us to continually reinforce the differences between public and private exchanges and the issues that shape them. So there's this continuous education platforms like what we're doing right here. IHC, is a great opportunity to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I can agree with you more. This industry is also, I think there's a lot of confusion around. I'd love to get your perspective on it. There's a lot of confusion around funding and defined contribution. And, to your point about private exchange being around for a while, I mean, defined contribution has been around for years, but it does marry itself nicely with the right exchange platform. But, give me your perspective on defined contribution funding strategies and this type of funding model.
Yeah, Doug, it is interesting. It's sort of a newfound thing, isn't it? But DC has been around for a long time, and of course made a big splash in the whole retirement space, obviously, and made a huge change there in the way people and employers provide retirement benefits. But I think DC defined contribution can be a very valuable funding model. And I'm emphasizing one of the options that an employer should consider and can consider in their benefit strategy. But I think just like exchange, you have to be a bit careful. It can mean different things to different people, or at least applied in different ways, right? So, and I think the way I think about it is it's defined. Are you talking about defined contribution across a coverage type? For example, medical versus life coverage, or are you talking about defined contribution across all coverage types? And there's a big difference in those two. I think defined contribution can have real value to the employer and the employee, right? For the employer, more predictable spend. For the employee, it's this whole idea of consumerism, giving them more responsibility and ownership and choice. And what they're getting, but I think you need to be careful, because if what we've seen in some cases, if the defined contribution is across all coverage types, we've seen people make some poor choices, like buying an extremely rich medical plan, a medical plan that's actually too rich for their needs, and then not participating at all, or participating to a very small degree in some of their other benefits like life or disability. And that can be a problem, right? So just to bear with me, a few stats, right? People who are in their 20s or 30s have a greater than 50% chance of being disabled at least 90 days before they reach age 65. Mortality in the U.S. workforce is 1 in 250. So those are small, relatively small, but it's not beyond the pale that something can happen here. The issue is, if people make a mistake on that other end, the sort of life and disability end of their benefits, because they're looking across and they're making poor choices in this defined contribution model, that can be a mistake that affects their entire family and upset things for decades, right? But if you focus the defined contribution across these pools of benefits, health over here, give people defined contribution and maybe choice there, and then look at a different pool of other coverage, I think it can be a very helpful tool.
I think that's well said. Hey, Joe, talk a little bit about the size of company that you're targeting with Fidelity Health Marketplace. We've got employers out there listening to this program, and their advisors, brokers, consultants. What is your sweet spot?
Our sweet spot is what we, at least at Fidelity, and I know there's different definitions, call small to mid-sized companies. So that's, to us, that's anything less than 2,500 employees. So that's our, technically our definition. And so that obviously spans both fully funded and fully insured and self-insured companies. This is a space we've targeted because, frankly, because of our large presence in the 401k space, we hear from a lot of these size companies and we have been for a while. And frankly, we've heard for a long time from them that, hey, the 401k offering is great. It's been around for a while, and it's really a terrific offering. But this healthcare space is an increasing problem for us, increasingly rising costs, or continuous rising costs, additional complexity and compliance and administrative burden, and at the same time, our employees don't really appreciate what we're providing for them, and they're confused and they're disengaged. So there's a sort of perfect storm here, and frankly, the big companies, right? The really big Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 50 companies, they've gotten everything they've needed for a long time, right? They have the power to demand customized technology and customized service to the nth degree. The smaller end of the market hasn't had the power to do that, but the good news is that technology that we expect, every day and everything when you buy a book or a TV or a car, that kind of technology and those expectations that people have come down or are available to smaller employers now. And so that's why we think this is a great play for us. It's a big problem for our customers that we've been hearing for a while, and now the pieces have come together that we think we can offer something that's really high quality to folks. And then, as I mentioned, then we also have been able to integrate it and connect it to our other products so that we have this more holistic one-stop shop.
And I think that, when you look at that small to mid-sized company and, to your point, they need a lot of help. There's a good business sense, common sense approach to they embracing the right marketplace like Fidelity Health Marketplace because it helps them manage their costs, lower their admin costs, and allows them to remain competitive with benefit choice selection for their employees, correct? I mean, it's a founded strategy for them to compete in this market and do it cost effectively.
Absolutely. They, just like big employers, they've got to compete for good talent, and they've got to retain that talent. So offering benefits is an important thing. And we've seen, I think recently, there's been some reversal at the very small end of the market where some employers have sent their folks to the public exchanges. There's been a retreat on that, not only because, as we talked about earlier, some of the carriers are pulling out and maybe there's less choice, but also employers are finding that's not attractive to the kind of people they want. And the other thing, we're talking about the small end of the market. Some of these guys are still, 100, 200 employees and more. They're still enrolling their employees in their benefits using paper. And
right.
Just imagine the burden there, right? We're in 2016, right? So there's some really impactful ways that we can help folks. And I was at a customer here just down the street in Boston the other day, and the head of benefits said, honestly, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be doing for ACA reporting. And, frankly, you guys, not only did you let me know that I need to do this, but you're doing it for me. So,
right.
This is a tough thing for small employers. They got a lot to do, and their benefits people are probably wearing 3 or 4 hats, right?
Yep, exactly right. Joe, listen, we're at the end of this segment, and I've enjoyed this discussion, very informative, and look forward to doing it again. I want to give you a chance to leave our audience with a few takeaways, if you would, and let them know how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. Well, so thank you for that opportunity. So, as I mentioned, I think Fidelity Health Marketplace is a different animal in this space. We're not merely a private exchange. We have that capability, but we are more of a admin platform that people can use year-round and benefit from year-round, especially as these two worlds of health and wealth converge. You can't make these decisions in isolation. So that's what we think we do very well, and we think uniquely well. And the way to reach us is fidelityhealthmarketplace.com.
Joe, thank you so much. Have a great weekend up in Boston. I look forward to catching up again real soon.
Sounds good, Doug. You're welcome. Thanks.